Hello, this is Eunice, and this is the Fall 2017 Collective Narrative End of Quarter Recap video. I'm going to walk you through what I did this quarter about my research, my tech, and designs, and also end with a couple of recommendations on how I hope the project will be improved in the future. So, what you see right here are a couple of paper prototypes of a collective narrative that I've been working on for a while called Nightwalk. And Nightwalk is a collective. The collective experience of it is people being paired to that are walking home alone at night. That's their affordance. And what we have here are a couple versions of what I thought this might look like. I thought there might be like dots of a Google Maps screen of people walking. I thought of footsteps. I thought of, how can people get paired by emotion and like fun grouping and then later talk in like a discussion board. I also thought of like, what kind of narrative do you want to tell, suggesting experiences, and just, various sketches that I thought were really helpful, and thought of a user persona named Kayla. This was really helpful because it helped me think of an actual person that I'm designing an experience for and how she might use it. So in this case, she had lost her transit card. It was super late and she was walking home on a dark and cold night. And then I started to think of, what do you usually do when you're walking at home? What could you do? You could call a friend, you could text, you could, play a game. So it was a lot of like kind of sketching and thinking. And then what I did was start writing some design arguments and then later created this digital prototype using Framer. And this was my first version. It was a little rusty, but it was a really great point to start. What you see here are these are supposed to be incrementing numbers going up. Ooh, that's not supposed to happen. And so imagine this being like 52, 53, 55 is kind of going up. And so are these. And you can kind of see people who are also on the app with you, and their steps are being counted as they walk home. And it's cool. You can see their location, you can see yours. And, as you're kind of watching this, maybe you can turn it into a game. You press I'm home, and then you get grouped by how you're feeling. So maybe curious, confused. I'm going to say curious. And then you get grouped into a community of other people who are also curious, and start discussing. Kind of like Yik Yak, that there was a lot of sort of inspiration from, Yik Yak is like location-based discussion, and this is more like after you do a specific experience together, emotion-based discussion. This was pretty interesting. I wasn't entirely convinced that a discussion board and grouping by emotion would be sort of that strong of an interface, but it was good to kind of start building something and then show it to other people and get that kind of feedback and then, pivot. So my other version was this, where you write where you're walking to, and so maybe it's like 1780 Chicago Ave, Evanston, blah, 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 and then I click submit, and then you would get paired with someone who has a similar walking time as you. So in this case, you're paired with Susan. She's in Sydney, you're in Evanston. You can swap music, you can swap ambient noise. And this was really interesting because I was thinking of like, what are some ways that you can non-invasively share bits about yourself that are playful and light, but also kind of meaningful. And so these were two things that I was kind of playing around with. But say, this is an estimated time. Say Susan gets home pretty early, like in 8 minutes. Then you get repaired automatically with Noah, who has also gets home in 2 minutes. He's from Des Moines, Iowa. You can do the same thing. Say you hear Noah's music. And then once you get home, you would get home and click this. And you would end up on the screen that has a map of your path, and you would see where you had these moments of like collective memories, where you exchange memories with who you're paired with. And the idea here is that, in another experience, you might get paired with Susan or Noah again. And each time you do, you have the opportunity to share a little bit more about yourself based on what your situation is in. So maybe it's a photo, maybe it's a quote, it could be anything, but you build these memories, and soon enough you would have like a library of memories where, when you walk down Sheridan, you pass Shakespeare Garden and you go right here, you would get notified like, hey, remember when you listen to Noah's music? And you would actually hear it. It wouldn't just be like, hey, remember, like it wouldn't just be like a notification, like you would actually hear it. So that was pretty interesting. I tested this with Morgan. Oh, I tested this with Morgan and got some good feedback. She didn't really care about time. She liked the idea of getting repaired with someone else in case you have safety issues. And she also suggested changing ambient noise to surrounding sounds, which I thought were all really good suggestions. So I created another version, this Nightwalk 2, where it starts off on this screen. So where are you walking to? I'm walking home from the library. I click submit. And then you get paired again, kind of similar, but now you see that Susan's walking to work from a morning shift. So that's kind of interesting. Like you kind of get to know a little bit more about, you can kind of imagine like Susan, walking. You don't know where she works, but, it's morning over there. That's kind of cool. You can do the same things. I also made a page for, say, Susan said sent you an audio clip and you can listen to that. I gave the option of getting repaired. So if you want to get repaired, you would get repaired with Noah while Noah's taking a walk with his dog, Stella. I think this kind of context is kind of cool because say you hear that or say you see that, Noah could easily send you like a sound or an audio clip of Stella barking, which would be kind of neat. But in this version, what's different is that I guess you don't really know how much time you're spending with the person, but maybe that doesn't really matter. In this case, I prioritized like what the person is doing and how much more you could share with them than just the fact that like you have 10 minutes together. So say I have a ride, you have a similar map, and the hope is that, again, if you do other experiences with Noah, you start building this library of things that you share. And so, individually they're all small moments, but when you're spending your day outside and you're walking and you stop and you're on Sheridan and you hear Noah's music or you hear Susan's surrounding sounds or you hear Noah's dog barking, it'll kind of remind you of like the memories you shared with them, and that itself is what I argue as a narrative. So yeah, this is what Framer looks like. It's pretty cool because you can use it. Reminds me of Sketch, but also you can code, and this is how I do all the hotspots. I tested this version, the second version, with Lily and Allison, and I do have a couple recommendations if I were to do it over again. I do think that going from the first screen where you write where you're walking to and then going immediately being paired is a little bit jarring. I think it would be really helpful if there was like a loading screen in between that says like, hey, I'm pairing you with someone with the same affordances, or pairing you with someone that you might, get along with or is a similar situation as you. That could be a more gentle way to ease the user into the experience. I was also surprised to hear that both Lily and Allison wanted to know if Susan and Noah got home safe. So maybe there is a sense of, closure. Like, so it doesn't really, so along with you saying that you're home, you can also be notified if they're home as well. Kind of like when Lyft sends you that text like, hey, hope you had a good ride. It just kind of like, it's a nice way to end the experience. Maybe there should be another loading screen if you hit the option of getting repaired. It could be a little bit jarring if you think you're with Susan and then you look at your phone again and now you're with like Bill. So if you get notified that you're being repaired and so is Susan, that could be just a nice little heads up. And then one thing I also heard was that Lily liked being paired with someone who had a more similar situation with her. She didn't really like connect with Susan, who was walking to work because it was AM over there and it was PM over here. So I think it's kind of interesting. I don't know how important it is to be paired with someone who's exactly like you, but it's something to consider. And then some feedback from Allison I thought was really interesting was if you could write notes that accompany your surrounding sounds or your music, that could be really interesting, and you get to know a little bit more about that person's interests. Um, and then Allison was interested in whether she could like ways that she could keep in touch even after the experience. Um, yeah, making a playlist or messaging are things that I've thought about, but I think for the purpose for this research, it makes more sense for a collective narrative to be a buildup of a number of experiences, collective experiences that you share with maybe like one or two people, and the whole idea of like building that like library of memories that you guys share is a way to keep in touch. Like you don't really need to make a playlist or such. So yeah, that was pretty much it for this quarter. I'm pretty happy with how things were built. I'm really happy that just like having a prototype like this made it so much easier to collect feedback and really iterate on my characteristics and designs. So I really recommend doing that. Yeah, and that's about it. Okay, thank you so much.